Okay, everybody take a seat. We're going to call this meeting to order. Everybody grab a seat. So, Andrew, do you want our board members out there seated anywhere else, or because we got Bob back here? Okay. Then let's go ahead and let's start with we've called the meeting to order here. Let's start with a roll call. No, we don't have Bridget, and I don't know your name.
I'm Carla.
Hi, Carla.
I'm with Prototype. Want to do roll call now?
Please.
Ed Strobel.
Here.
Christopher Rotella. Absent. Steve Witten.
Here.
Richard Graves.
Here.
Bob Dennison. Here. Noel Norvell. Here. Ted Morley. Absent. Roseanne Lovell. Here. Kitty McGowan. Absent. Deidre Bowling Lewis. Absent. Barry Flanagan. Norbert McLaughlin.
Here.
And James Harrison.
Here.
And Chair Grant Henderson.
Here. Thank you. Okay. Moving on to agenda item number 2. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes from our December 2nd meeting?
I so move.
So it's Ed Strobel. Do we have a second?
Steve Witten, second.
Steve Witten. Okay, all those in favor of the approval of the minutes from December 2nd?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Great. So Andrew, we do have a quorum. Okay. Thank you very much. Item number 4, Sergeant Thomas Capano, if you could give us our Waterway crime and boating safety report, please.
Okay, so during the month of December, the Fort Lauderdale Marine Unit responded to 8 burglaries, and we issued 35 citations and warnings. We worked on or dealt with an abandoned vessel that has now been removed from George English Park, so that's gone. And we're working on. There were 2 abandoned vessels just north of Las Olas in that bay area there. The sailboat, the blue one, that one has since sunk prior to us getting it to that process of getting it removed. But the white boat that's in that bay area is also, that's in the process of being removed.
Okay.
Yep, we're waiting for quotes and then removal.
Gotcha. Is that it?
That's it.
How did the boat parade go for you guys?
Boat parade went very well for us.
Good.
No issues.
Great. Questions for the board for the sergeant? Okay. Thank you very much. Barry?
Sergeant, I noticed over the weekend, or over the period in between Christmas, New Year's, having been out on the water twice at night, it was so crowded. How do you staff that?
Are you referring to just in general staffing
Yeah,
at night?
it was so many boats out on the river, up and down near coastal.
Well, the Marine Unit hours, we work typically 7 a.m. to 5 p.m., 7 days a week. On occasion, we have officers working during the nighttime hours, but it's not an everyday thing, just because of staffing.
Does that M-Log help you with that?
That is M-Leg that we work to during those evening hours, yes.
Just a follow-up.
Go ahead.
Follow up on that. Are you utilizing the MLEG grant? And if so, how are you using all of it?
Yeah, that's what I was referring to. When we work the evening shift hours, that is the M-Leg grant.
But I know is the city actually, like last year, did they use all of the grant? Were you able to use all of it?
We used a large percentage of it, but we've never actually used 100%. It's always typically in the 75 to 80% range. That's been for many years.
Is it a staffing issue primarily as far as getting people to do it?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's exactly what it is. Yep. We tend to work about 25 hours, upwards of 35 hours a week. So it's still some time. It's not like it's not worked at all, but it could be more if we have the staffing.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else from the board for the sergeant? Thank you very much. Appreciate it. All right, let's move on to item number 5, presentation to Clean Waterways LLC. We have John Luce and Dr. Charles Gregory. You guys want to? Yeah, go right. Please step up. Introduce yourself.
Perfect. Perfect. Thanks for having me. Is this able to be projected on the screens there and then your screens at all? Yes. And how would I do that?
Our IT wizard back there will help you. Yep, we can see it.
We're in business. All right.
Yeah, please begin.
All right. Thank you, everybody. This is exciting. We're all here for marine-related issues, concerns, and hopefully solutions. My name's Dr. Charlie Gregory. I'm a marine biologist and I'm a veterinarian. I'm a veterinarian focused on things like manatees and sharks and coral reefs. I've got a nonprofit that I've started in Florida, the Reef Institute. We have some government funding. We've got some private funding. We grow coral. We educate the kids, something like 1,500 kids a week, learn about marine science, conservation, and how to solve issues related to the marine environment. So we've got a presentation tonight with a new endeavor, brand new company that is built around solving waterways pollution issues. Clean Waterways, I've brought with me the founding fathers, the president, Miles Foreman, John Loos, the vice president, John Millage is an attorney in town who's very good at negotiating and working in these realms, and our chief operating guy, Shane Lafreniere, and again, myself, Dr. Charlie Gregory. And we've started up a technology-based company that actually can remove waste from water. So I'm very interested specifically in preserving the coral reef environment. It's the most important environment on the planet. I'm a bit biased, but I'm also a scientist in this area and very knowledgeable about it. Not only is it extremely economically important, both to governments and people themselves for use issues, but these reefs protect the coastline, and they're very important for the marine ecosystem. They accommodate a quarter of all the species in the ocean at some point during their life cycle. So very, very valuable ecosystems, and right now they're in peril. They're literally the canary of the coal mine. 40% around the world, we're at 40% of what we should be. And in Florida, we have the worst statistics. We're at about 2% since the epitome of coral reefs, in the 50s and 60s when we were starting the science and watching them close. So very valuable to our economy and ecology, but they're not doing well at all. And this is a problem I face and solutions I'm trying to find every day. And so a major source, a demonstrated source through all the science is pollution going into the water. They can't make their skeletons if there's phosphorus in the water. They get outcompeted by algae if there's nitrogen in the water. And so when we have sewage breaks, fertilizers leaching into the water, all sorts of humans activities, erosion, we get these things in the water that smother the coral reefs, that prevent them from doing their job. We're standing on ancient coral reef right here. All of South Florida, the Keys is coral reef. It's supposed to be growing, and because of human activities, it's not. It's actually shrinking. So scary stuff. We're setting ourselves up for serious damage during hurricanes, general erosion, which costs all the coastal municipalities a lot of money. So by polluting the environment, we're shooting ourselves in the foot. And it isn't just the coral reefs. We're seeing these unprecedented manatee deaths as a result of seagrass. You could call it deforestation. And there's a very clear correlation to all this nutrient going in the water and the seagrass death. So tragic circumstance. So we're looking around here and doing some samples from some of the local waterways. The Federal Department of Health says that the number 70 is the magic number for whether you want your kids to be in the water or not. And all of these numbers up here from a variety of places in this area demonstrate the numbers we are actually getting. So safe is 70, and we're getting above 5,000. Sometimes we're getting above near 20,000. This is human sewage. It's coliform bacteria. It's not good to be in. It can come from other mammals, but in general, in this area, we're looking at human sewage considerations. There's also a variety of other stuff in the water that's generally unaccounted for. We got some resources with DEP. They are open to sharing their testing results, and we're seeing all sorts of human-derived chemicals in the environment that are not good for the environment for obvious reasons. Pesticides and medicines, things like hormones in the environment, just at the lowest concentrations can mess with sea life. So we've got Johnny Lose, he's over here, he's got a big smile on his face. A few years ago, with these unfortunate acute environmental concerns in Fort Lauderdale, some septic sewage situations, he was concerned for his kids. His kids weren't able to swim. He's worried about the future of his natural environment. So he wanted to assemble a team of experts to explore technological solutions. He'd seen some of these things for taking care of bait fish and wanted to explore some technologies. So he's assembled a variety of folks. As upstanding water people in this room, you might recognize some of the folks on this list. Many of them are here tonight, but other outstanding members include Mike Lambrex, who's in charge of Coastal Conservation Association for this area. Dr. Catherine Koenig, she's a rock star at environmental engineering and doing patents for that. So quite a team. And the idea was to explore specifically this technology called foam fractionation, using protein skimmers, these giant tubes full of bubbles to mechanically separate poisons from the water. Excess nutrient, coliform bacteria, all these hormones and pesticides, these actually can remove them simply by using bubbles. Currently, they're designed for the aquarium environment. You see them at Georgia Aquarium in the whale shark tank. We use them in the most pristine aquariums for coral because they remove the things that hurt coral extremely well. But the idea is to use this technology to extract dissolved garbage from the water, something that currently isn't developed. And so we put together a pilot barge with 3 large protein skimmers on them. And this barge was deployed as a pilot in the Himmershey Canal this summer. And many of you probably saw it there. And there was some signage and some media coverage about what was going on there. This barge was capable of getting back into the canal and processing about 1,000 gallons of water per minute. Now, what does this do? By combining water purification and moving it and oxygenating it, it allows for a lot of the garbage that was in the water to be removed immediately. It allows for a lot of the molecules that are in the water to then be broken down by good bacteria, and then that breaks them down into more garbage that can be removed immediately. And overall, it clears up the turbidity, it lowers the coliform counts, and it removes these molecules that shouldn't be in there, these human medical and fertilizer hormones. So right away, using sediment barriers, we're able to do a pilot for the pilot. And over the first week, during a window where there wasn't going to be a lot of rain, we closed off an area immediately surrounding the barge, and we demonstrated very clearly that we were able to reduce the amount of E. coli and coliform bacteria in the immediate environment. We corroborated these with certified labs, and we, without a doubt, showed that what was a sewage problem in a small area was resolved down to levels that were under that scary number of 70. We got down to lower than 50 within 2 or 3 days in the small area. We had a lot of rain a little bit after, and you can see it bumped up, but we're still staying ahead of the curve within our little space. The product that we produce, the skimmate, it's thick, it's a little dirty. The idea, though, is that we've got an environmentally certified lab, and we send samples to the Department of Environmental Protection, and it is disposed of in the same way that you dispose of sewage in a responsible way in the human systems. So we had up against us a lot of things. We were there during the time of year where there's a lot of rainstorms, and just being there during these 3 months this summer, we saw unforeseen, unexpected spills coming from the drains that emptied from the streets and local human environments into the canal. You can see a dead iguana here covered in flies. This is clearly not good for the local environment. You don't want your pets drinking water out of here. You certainly don't want your kids here, and yet we'd see paddleboarders and kayakers going through here. We made way for them. So the results of this, though, we absolutely were capable of demonstrating the efficacy of these in this wild environment this summer. Despite the storms, despite the stuff coming out of the outfalls, we were able to concentrate our skimmate to 55 times the nitrogen concentration in that polluted environment. That's not a healthy environment. We were concentrating against a heavy gradient and still concentrated 55 times the nitrogen, 120 times the phosphorus, 1,000 times the coliform counts. And those coliform counts at that dead end of the Himmershy were sometimes 15, 20,000. We didn't operate all the way in the end. We're operating in the middle and then towards the mouth. We're also removing this decomposing algae, unintentionally heavy metals from the testing, and a variety of other chemicals. And the result was cleaner water, more clear water, and more highly oxygenated water. This was corroborated by the city's efforts to bring in outside testing through the Miami Waterkeepers. These folks came in and tested every week, and we had a very high ratio of success compared to the previous months. And we were there again during the wild west of the year when we've got rain and a lot of people circulating and a lot of people washing their windows and making messes in the environment. And so we had a very good statistical rate of success for passing scores, under 70, for this water body. An overall downtrend in turbidity. Turbidity is the clarity of the water. Turbidity is what lets the sunlight get through, which allows barracudas and visual predators to hunt their food and survive in this environment. It's what allows for the seagrass to survive. So we had an overall downward trend in the canal's turbidity throughout the entirety of our demonstrated pilot period. Here's more trends. We're doing more turbidity surveys, low tide and high tide, and again, downward trend on all of them. The spikes there correlated precisely to NOAA's major rain events in downtown Fort Lauderdale. Clear water is great for growing back an environment. The key to igniting a natural process for recovery is clear water. You get your manatees back, you get your predators back, you get your sea turtles back. At the end of the day, you can't start an ecosystem without sunlight. It's the base trophic level. It's so important. We also increased biodiversity just by being there. We're able to see the aggregations of animals. Prior to the study, we were observing for a short time, difficult to observe because of the turbidity of the water, but as we continued on, we saw a variety of species aggregating around the barge. High clarity, high oxygen environment attracts kind of like an oasis. We, because we were there, felt compelled to remove the garbage in the environment, even the iguanas from the environment. And we almost immediately saw these surface films of oils and even pollen and stuff removed. And the bad blue-green algae that layers the bottom, that suffocates everything, that sometimes is toxic, was also mitigated in the areas where we were operating. And overall, the surfaces we had of the kayaks, the barge, the service tenders of small boats were festooned with marine biology by the end of 3 months. A very high recruitment rate for little mussels and snails and stuff like that. So potential applications for this are numerous. You can figure this in to use in terms of putting out emergencies like fire trucks or ongoing maintenance like garbage trucks. The idea of intercepting pollutants at bottlenecks before they even enter the waterway is ideal. Otherwise, if you do have a disaster or an ongoing area where you can't mitigate them at a bottleneck, you can position this technology in a way that it can mitigate the overall nitrogen, phosphorus, and other garbage going in. You can also anticipate when you're doing coastal management in terms of dredging or development to put these resources in place to mitigate pollution. And then when there's these terrible bacterial and algae blooms that suffocate the entire environment, these can act as an oasis. These can oxygenate the environment, and sharks will come from 100 miles away if they can sense that there's a clean environment there. And then just this ongoing remediation. We already have a lot of pollution stagnant in the backs of some of these canals, already flowing out to the ocean, already starting to interact with the coral and mess with the seagrass. Anything we can pull out is good. So the idea is right now scaling. We were optimizing the technology. We were creating prototypes. We were tweaking the processes, making it more economical. And now we've got a few patents. We've got a lot of prototypes, and we have some great opportunities to really demonstrate more efficient and more powerful versions of foam fractionation with these crazy protein skimmers that could be designed both for intercoastal work, operating long-term in marinas, leave behind in bottlenecks near sewage outfalls, or open ocean versions that are formidable in their capacity to mitigate ambient excess nutrient that is in that environment messing with the coral reefs. We currently have a second barge, a number of major size skimmers, things that are 1,000 gallons each capacity, being assembled, and we're organizing their deployment. Additionally, there's ideas that are much more hands-off, scalable, extremely cost-effective, solar-powered, small-scale units that could be broadly and widely deployed out of the way, allowing for right-of-way in environments using the same technology that can operate very efficiently. And so these prototypes we're trialing right now. Give us a few months and we'll have some demonstrations available. So the big picture, we have a lot of challenges with the amount of garbage going into the water, but this technology has amazing potential. I use this to keep the corals alive in my facility. These filters are like cheating, and I'm really surprised that it hadn't been deployed already for environmental protection and this excess nutrient and waste mitigation. But we're going to charge ahead. It's proven to be extremely effective, and we're going to just keep on scaling and making it more and more sustainable, economical, and ecologically friendly. The best policy is to intercept this before it even happens. So land-based, human-based strategies for mitigating pollution, but let's address all of this at the same time and see if we can save the coral reefs and manatees who are currently in dire straits. Really want to thank the commissioners and the mayor for allowing for this pilot and this ongoing collaboration. Staff scientists, engineers, everybody in Fort Lauderdale has been amazing for helping this technology be developed at an extremely rapid rate. And it makes perfect sense because the water is celebrated here. And all of you guys know it. And here we are taking care of business. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else from Clean Water that wants to speak? Okay. Do we? You guys have any questions for any of us? Yeah, we'll open it up to the board for questions. Ed, did you have
Love the presentation. Thank you very much, and appreciate you what you guys are doing. I live on the river here, and we need definitely something like this. My question is, what is your ask today? How can we help you? What is your ask?
What is the ask?
Our government relations specialist deal with the ask.
John Mills for Clean Waterways. Yeah, we're going to give a presentation like this to the City Commission, I think in about a couple weeks from now. So whatever position you can take on this, that hopefully favorable, would be helpful to us. We have appeared before the county's Marine Advisory Board, and they issued a letter of support for the project. So, whatever you feel comfortable supporting, we would much greatly appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
We'd like to continue doing what we're doing. I have 3 young sons. I grew up as a native here, as did my partner, Miles Foreman. And right now, the waterways are dangerous, and they're not safe for my children, and they're not safe for the future. And the direction that we're heading is catastrophic. I know that's sad to say, but it's the truth. And it's not just our inland waterways, it's our reefs, it's everything. And we have a responsibility as a community, and I feel the responsibility as a father to do everything we can to clean up the waterways and restore Fort Lauderdale to its glory, so our kids can go wakeboarding again, our kids can go paddleboarding again, they can kayak, they can throw a cast net and not worry about getting sick. We're asking for everything you guys can give us to support us in this endeavor. There's no other technology or no other solutions out there on the table like ours. And we're all locals that care. We're in it because, everyone's, hey, let's move away from here. And no, we're not moving away from here. We're gonna fix it, and we're gonna make it better. And so, we truly care, and we're in it for the long haul, and we appreciate your guys' support in any way you can.
Thank you.
I have a question. From the sewage spills that we had 2 years ago, are we looking at long-term damage from that? Are things changed? Are things different from what happened 2 years ago?
So that and another of other environmental insults, it creates essentially a blanket that's almost irreversible. You get your layer of blue-green algae in the back of one of these canals, and it just continues to grow and suffocate like an impermeable membrane. It needs a leg up. The environment needs a kickstart. It needs that breather, that fresh air, so that it can get enough momentum to take care of itself again. The hope is to copy nature in the best possible way, use technology that oxygenates the environment while removing the current blanket of garbage settled on there. As soon as you can do that, it can start to perpetuate itself. But right now, it's in a vicious cycle of nastiness, essentially.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Oh,
Miles?
I have a question. Hold on. With your equipment that you have you ever detected, obviously you put them in different areas of the canals and everything else. Fort Lauderdale happens to have a lot of storage pipes that run in the waterways and in the canals. By putting your equipment and stuff and maybe in different locations, could you maybe help the city in determining where there might be some small leaks where we have storage still leaking out into the river itself? So what I'm basically saying, do you have maybe a certain area that peaks more on pollution than another area, and maybe that might be a telltale that there may be a leak in a pipe?
So part of our barge that we deployed on Himmershey is we're a science platform as well. We are detecting. We have 5-6 different probes measuring oxygen, pH, salinity. We're taking, 10 samples a day of coliforms and Enterococcus and all the bacteria in the water. So we operate as a science barge as well because the knowledge is really important. Yes, we have pinpointed one of the most important things is finding the sources, the points of source, right? And we've found points of sources in Himmershey. We've seen things that were unnatural, let me say, that didn't always coincide with rain events. And we would see the numbers go from 60 to 7,000 overnight. And we would have video of things pouring out of storm drains. There was an environmental crimes detective Teddy Levins, who investigated some of this stuff. There's definitely things going on beyond what we all know. And when I wanted to really understand what all was connected to those storm drains, and as I tried to dig into that, it's very difficult. They don't have an exact plan of everything that's been connected to those storm drains. It's been kind of bastardized over the years, and there isn't an exact thing. But yes, we have seen points of source of pollution that are very bad, that are happening. Dr. Gregory talks about coliforms, and then the level is getting up over 10,000. Okay, when it rains, right? The number shouldn't spike to 10,000 in one day. There's not enough dog poop in the water. All right, iguanas don't create coliforms. It's only mammals. So, yes, there's more going on than we understand, and we've been able to identify the points of source of where they're coming from out into the canal, but where they're leading to into that storm drain, we have not been able to identify completely.
Well, what I was saying is there's pipes. I said I've repaired 1 or 2 pipes, maybe a little more, in Fort Lauderdale where there was a leak. And I wasn't sure whether the leak was completely stopped. And what I was basically saying is you could help this city if your equipment in those particular areas would kind of detect that there is still a leak going, that would you know, it's creating more of a problem for wherever you're trying to clean up the waterway if you're putting pollution back in and you don't really know it, because these leaks are not major leaks, they're small leaks. And I'm saying that
So the idea of like a heat map, a general survey, and then you bloodhound into the area that is the source is absolutely capable. We're limited to Himmershey Canal, but we have technology that could run 1,000, a lot of tests a day. So we could absolutely do a heat map and generally narrow in on point sources.
We got a system that monitors 24 hours a day, temperatures, salinities, so it's very capable to track down. As we move down, the levels get higher. As we move to the left, they get lower. It's very capable of tracking it down.
Grant?
Other questions?
Yeah, did you have something, Miles?
Oh, no, well, I just wanted to thank everyone for, listening to our presentation. We're happy to answer questions. And one last thing on his question is that, yeah, the more time we spend in an area, the more we can observe and we can actually detect. So we definitely are working on lots of different solutions to do both of those things, clean and pinpoint the origin of the pollution.
Thank you. Jimmy?
Yeah, I just want to say that the first time I saw the barge, I had no idea what it was. I thought they were giant, like antique gas pumps. And when I went over to John's house to see it, then I understood what it was. That they're protein skimmers. And it's kind of hard with all of the chemical lingo that you use. It can be confusing. But I know that if anyone has a saltwater fish tank, you have one of these. It's a protein skimmer, and it works. It's basically with all the stuff you got in a small fish tank, all the poop, all of the nitrates, all of the algae, all that, it can make it crystal clear. I have one. It works really, really good. So I know that it works. And all that they're really doing is scaling up that process. They're scaling it up. They're turning what works in a fish tank. How do we do that in the canals? Doing it. I got very excited about it, and I came to our board, the Marine Industry Board, to get the marine industry to support it and back it. We had them do some presentations at the boat show as well. So, the Marine Industry Association strongly backs, this process. And I think the really cool thing is that it's here. It's Fort Lauderdale. This is a local thing, And if anybody has a bad rap with water and pollution, nationwide, it's Fort Lauderdale right now. People aren't talking about the pollution in the Hudson River. Talk about the pollution in Fort Lauderdale and broken sewer pipes. So we have the opportunity, here to support, a technology, a public-private partnership, whatever, with creating a solution for pollution. Where our pollution solution now is just picking up debris. We go around and have our boats that pick up coconuts and leaves and stuff like that. But this actually cleans the water. It takes the pollution out of the water. It's not dredging. It's not taking coconuts out of the water, but it's cleaning the poop out of the water. It's cleaning nitrates out of the water, cleaning all the bad stuff, and then they get rid of it, do that. It's, the thing that makes Fort Lauderdale special to me, is the water and boats. It's the marine industry is the largest industry in the county, in the state. And why is it? Because we have great water. We have the access to the ocean, to the Bahamas, and the waterways, the canals that we have. It's the yachting capital of the world, and they also call it the Venice of America. Hopefully it's not the Venice of America because it's very polluted in Venice. It's terrible. And it would be really cool if we could provide a solution to Venice, of pollution, and provide a solution, for nationwide, but to have it start here. So I think that for our city to support, to number one, benefit from doing this, to clean our water, is a great thing. And that, the city, the optics that the city could gain from helping this technology grow and prosper and, and do well, scale up is all that it has to do, would be a good thing for the city, to support. And I hadn't thought of it really before this, but, I think that like a letter, but, we do recommendations to the commission, or what do we call them? Communications to the commission, especially if it's coming up, if you're going to be doing a presentation there, that we issue a communication to the commission, and that the Marine Advisory Board supports, funding, of this, in whatever way that they decide, to funding of this technology going forward. They already did it once. I'm very happy, very grateful that the mayor, supported it, and got you guys to do it, to prove it, prove that it works. So, anyway, I guess I'd like to make a motion, to make, I don't know how to frame it, but to do a
Communication to the commission.
Yeah, to the commission, that the commission supports through funding an ongoing relationship with these guys. Fill in the correct name. Clean Waterways.
Clean Waterways.
Yeah.
Andrew, is that acceptable?
And to speak English, like James was saying, from Dr. Gregory's brilliant presentation, one very important thing that we can do is, such as the estuaries and the smaller bodies of water in the intercoastal, we can make them healthy again so they can function properly, because they're not functioning properly. They're so toxic that the natural filtration and the natural ecosystem that keeps everything flowing through there, so fish can see and food can grow, the manatees can see, everything can function. We can bring them back to health, so then they're functioning healthy again, and that's a big part of what we do.
Yeah, and it's a unique thing. So there's lots of, grow clams, grow mussels, clean the water, those types of things going on nationwide. This is different. Like you said, this is cheating. This is actually using fish tank filtration technology on a large scale in the water. And, in a purely selfish manner for the city of Fort Lauderdale would be to ride on the back of, being a part of it, of taking this, to the rest of the world, but to benefit, number one, here in Fort Lauderdale with clean water. It'd be really cool if you could actually see the seagrass, that's supposed to be growing on the bottom of the canals, and it would grow a lot better. Everything would do better. So,
Yeah. Okay. Do you have a question?
I do. Robin Chiarelli, Marine Advisory Board.
Robin, do you mind coming up just so we have it on record and we can hear you properly? Thank you.
Robin Chiarelli, Marine Advisory Board. Hi, John. I'd like to second James's motion, but how much does it cost? And what is the geographical extent that one unit can treat, and how scalable is it? And how long do you have to deploy the unit for it to work?
Thanks, Robin.
That's a lot of questions.
There's a lot of variability per environment. We're talking about different types of pollution. The overall idea of it is becoming more and more optimized, more and more economical. The different models, the Gen 2 to Gen 3 stuff, is getting to be more leave behind, less intensive, more technologically advanced, solar, stuff like that. The right answer is something like, the current barge was something around $400 an hour to remove, it was like 45, 50 gallons of sludge per unit per hour. The science and the technology are coming along so fast, our ability to scale it, the costs are going down. The versatility of the systems, so to be used in the open ocean versus canals, oily slicks versus bottom pollution, versus algae outbreak versus bacterial bloom versus just whatever acute pollution is being involved from some other human disaster. It's all variable, but the stuff is becoming more and more affordable, more and more widely deployable for larger bang for the buck. I hope that answers the question. I mean, stay tuned, my friend. We've got some technology that's going to blow you away.
Okay, well, we have, Andrew, we have a second on Jim's motion to issue a communication to the commission before their next meeting. So,
Do you want the?
I think Jimmy already made the motion,
Jimmy made the motion.
made a motion. Yeah.
and it was seconded.
Do you want to repeat it, Jimmy?
Good.
You have it.
You want to read it to us? Yeah.
No.
No, you can. No, you
Okay, give me a second to, to send a communication to the commission to support funding for an ongoing relationship with Clean Waterways.
Concise enough, yeah. Good.
Concise is usually the best.
I'll second it.
You know,
Robin did.
Robin seconded. So let's just take a voice vote then.
For the motion.
Voice vote?
No, I mean, we don't need to go.
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't.
Let's just do, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? There you have it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck, thank you.
Yeah, good luck. Okay, let's move on to item number 6, dock waiver, 625 Southwest 5th Place, Daniel Cole, Cole Properties and Land LLC. And I believe we have the Tyler Chappelle Group, and you'll get up and, I forget your name, Jenna. You would get up and state your name. I think you know the drill.
Not on here.
They don't know you're serving drinks.
Huh?
They don't know you're serving drinks.
Yeah. Yes, we're on the dock waiver, item number 6.
Who, the doctor? Where's she? Nice. Very cool. Very cool. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Here, Bob, do you need one? Okay, I have it on my computer if anybody is lacking a presentation.
Okay.
Please.
Hi, everybody. My name is Jenna Robbins. I'm with the Chappelle Group, and I am here on behalf of the applicant, Mr. Daniel Cole with Cole Properties and Land LLC.
I think.
Oh, thank you. So the applicant is requesting a variance for his property at 625 Southwest 5th Place in Fort Lauderdale. Here is an aerial photograph of the location of his property. It's along the New River, just east of where the New River starts to split off into the North Fork and the South Fork. Here's an aerial view of the northeastern portion of the property facing southwest. Here you can see the property extends towards the bottom of the screen. They have a finger pier, or one wood finger pier right here, and a second one right there, and a couple mooring piles out into the water. And then here's another aerial view from the southwestern portion of the property facing northeast. And here's just another view facing north. And then another one facing west. And here's a bird's eye view of the property. You can see here that the seawall kind of jogs in on the southwest side of the property. They have 2 wood finger piers, a couple mooring piles, and they have moored vessels at this property for the past of 10 or 20 years. So here's a survey of the property showing that they have a 172 linear foot concrete seawall. As I mentioned before, it jogs in on that south side a little bit, and then there's 2 wood finger piers. The applicant is proposing to remove those finger piers, install a 164 linear foot concrete panel seawall. They're proposing to do it almost parallel with the property line so that it creates a uniform bulkhead along the New River to prevent the accumulation of trash and debris in that little triangular area where the seawall jogs in, and also the backfilling behind that seawall because of that triangular area. The applicant is also proposing to install 3 floating docks that are approximately 7 feet wide and 50 feet long. Each ramp will have a 12-foot long by 4-foot wide ramp. And then there will be 2 mooring piles in between each of the floating docks for a total of 4 mooring piles. The floating docks and the mooring piles exceed 25 feet from the property line, so the applicant is requesting a waiver for each structure. The minimum distance is 28.1 feet from the property line, and the maximum distance is 55.6 feet from the property line. So the applicant is requesting a waiver for a minimum of 3.1 feet to a maximum of 30.6 feet. And here's a cross-sectional view showing the existing conditions. At the top is they have just a concrete panel seawall, and then on the bottom are the proposed conditions, so showing the installation of a new wall in front and the backfilling of the property and the installation of a 50-foot long dock. And here's an aerial view. This is the existing conditions again, showing the 2 wood finger piers and the existing concrete seawall. This aerial was taken from property appraisers, so you can see historically there have been about usually 4 to 5 vessels moored at this property. And here are the proposed conditions overlaid on top. Again, the applicant is proposing 3 floating docks, 4 mooring piles that will exceed the 25 feet from the property line. These floating docks are proposed to accommodate 4 70-foot vessels and 1 60-foot vessel that are shown on the attached exhibit. Because this property is also located on submerged state lands, it will require a submerged lands lease through the Florida Department of Environmental Protection. So this lease is proposed at about 10,000 square feet and will be enforced by DEP or the Florida Department of Environmental Protection. So the structures and vessels cannot extend further into the waterway than where this lease is proposed. And here's a zoomed out distance exhibit. It's the same thing, just a little zoomed out a little more, showing that perpendicular mooring is the usual case along this portion of the New River, and the proposed structures and vessels are not extending any further into the waterway than the neighbors in the vicinity. And here's a summary of the proposed structures and the variances requested. Again, the structures will extend a minimum of 28.1 feet from the property line and a maximum of 55.6 feet. So the applicant is requesting a waiver of a distance of 3.1 feet to a maximum of 30.6 feet. The extraordinary circumstances which warrant the applicant for requesting this waiver are that all the structures and pilings and floating docks will not exceed 30% the width of the waterway. Due to the extraordinary width, approximately 250 feet, they will not impede navigation. They currently have structures and vessels out there. The vessels extend 70 feet into the waterway. These floating docks and proposed mooring piles are necessary for safely mooring the residents' vessels during high wind events and severe weather, and then also during high wave energy from excessive boat wakes. So the applicant is mainly just requesting these floating structures to safely moor his vessels properly, as he currently has vessels there, so we would just like to do it more safely. And here are some images from the past, taken from Broward County Property Appraiser from 2010, 2014, and 16. His property, can you see my mouse on there's a red pin on each of the photos, and then his 2 wood docks are kind of in the middle of each picture. And so in each one of these pictures, you see 4 vessels moored there that extend about 70 feet into the waterway. And this is consistent with the neighbors to the north and other vessels along the New River. And then here are some more recent aerials from 2020 and 2018 showing the same thing, 70-foot vessels extending out into the waterway perpendicular to the shoreline. And this is at the applicant's property as well as neighbors within the vicinity. We currently have environmental permit applications in with the 3 agencies, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, Florida Department of Environmental Protection, and the Broward County Environmental Protection Growth Management Department, and we are currently processing those. We have 3 letters of support, 2 of which are from the adjacent neighbors directly to the north. And then here's an exhibit showing the neighbors within the vicinity where there was a record that a waiver was previously granted. These waivers granted structures to extend 38 feet to 62 feet waterward of the property line. And here's another exhibit showing the neighboring structures that are consistent with the waiver request. There are measurements on this exhibit that were approximated from the Broward County Property Appraiser website. They were taken approximately from the property line. The blue measurements are the length of the vessels, and the red measurements are structures, mainly mooring piles and some finger piers extending out into the waterway. And so some of these structures extend a minimum of approximately 38 feet from the property line to about 70 feet from the property line. And here's another exhibit showing the 30% width of the waterway. So the 30% width is shown in blue. The top line and the bottom line are the 30% from each shoreline. So then the remaining 40% width of the waterway, which would be used for navigation, is the dark blue solid polygon in the middle of the waterway. So you can see that the proposed structures are not extending any further into the waterway. And they are consistent with the perpendicular mooring of other neighbors within the vicinity. And with that, I'll thank you for your time and consideration, and I'll take any questions.
Okay.
I don't think the problem is with your structures. I think the problem is how far it is out on the water, number one. I went by there, you have that 70-footers and stuff sticking out in the water right now, and you're actually saying it's an unsafe condition. Absolutely it is. But I'm looking at the picture, the last picture you showed in there, and that kind of limits the north side of the river from doing the same thing that you're doing on the south side of the river. I ran a barge up in that area and to go to the marine facilities that are to the west. And that area that you're talking about is the area where I have to stand by to let an outbound vessel coming by. In other words, I have to move over. There's no other room. I can't go on the other side because Cooley's Landing is over there. And thank God right now there's not as many structures on the north side of the river. But looking at what you're putting out in there, you're going to limit it to what anybody can put out on the other side of the river. If they put out the same thing, there'd be no even these towboats going west and stuff can't get out. I would say you are a hazard to navigation, the way that boat is sticking out. Those boats are 70-footers out there. A 50-foot boat would be kind of a hindrance, but I said that would be more acceptable than your 70-foot boat. I just think it's out in the river too far, and I think it's a hazard to navigation the way it is, and also it's a safety factor of any of the towboats or anybody that's trying to make their way to the marine industries that are to the west.
Anybody else from the board? Jimmy, go ahead.
Yeah, I have a question. The zoning of this property, is it zoned to be a marina? Can we do that?
No, it's not a marina. And DEP will also regulate that through their lease.
Okay. Because I mean, I didn't know you could have 5 boats at your property, and so I mean they have to be rented, I would assume, because unless the owner is going to own 5 yachts.
So
You could state your name,
Gregory McAloon, attorney at Tripp Scott. I'm the attorney for Daniel Cole Properties and everything. This property is RD 15. The rental of the boats is permitted within that area of it. If you know Ed Brennan next door with it, there was a huge battle over it just in 2018, and they found in his favor that it was permitted to rent. As to the width question, there's rules in place to be able to govern navigability. We're within confines of those rules with it. And you mentioned Cooley's Landing. That's a city property. Right now, the city's burdening a private property owner with creating that navigation which fits within the confines of the prescribed rules, and yet the city is out maximum right there, and then we have to share the burden of that. I understand your point with it, but it's not a private property owner's burden to bear when there's predefined rules that are set out that are able to go when you have a consistent pattern. With regard to the 70-foot boats being there, precedent is set. That has been there for quite some time. We have 50-foot pilings out there. We could replace those 50-foot pilings, and it's no more of a hazard to navigation. All that's being required is we're trying to put a dock to safely place vessels within a structure so we don't have all the different hoopla that's really created out to this situation. So I just wanted to make that known on the record, and I could answer any questions, and I'm available to speak on behalf of the property owner with regard to it.
Just one point on your presentation, 777 Southwest 6th Street. You show that as a waiver. This board approved it. I think it's the first time in, 20 years this board was overturned by City Commission. They said no to 777.
Oh, okay.
And that was only going 13 feet over, just so you know that we got turned down after we approved it. So City Commission overturned our decision next door to you for 13 feet in a wider part of the canal.
That property owner was Edward Kerwin. He was a client of mine, and we worked on that. I didn't do that advisory. I know we resubmitted with it, and I want to confirm with my memory and check to see if that resubmission went through with it. But I do understand that process, and that came well before, and there were some separate issues associated. So I don't want to conflate the two with it, just because there's different considerations at play. This has property that has boats that have been there for a long time. There is a use argument that has been used this way historically. I could argue for 40 years. I could find those images, I guarantee you. And so it's just a matter of there's separate considerations. We have pilings existing. We're already out to the navigation that's claiming with it. We're just building a dock in between 2 points to safely moor vessels.
Other questions from the board? Barry.
My assistant here gets the microphone going. Under the extraordinary circumstances.
Barry, right in the microphone.
Under the extraordinary circumstances, I want to refer to the existing situation there now. There's 25-foot pilings, and there's boats that are 65 and 68 foot out. That's not reflecting a safety, a good situation. And yet you're referring to, it's an extraordinary circumstance that we have to increase the pilings. The vessels there now are not safely moored using the description that you're offering here. I would like to submit some pictures. You want to send this? We received this afternoon a letter opposing this from Courtney Day, who is one of the foremost operators of tugs on the river. We refer to him for opinions and advice at times. I would rather see this board support the continuation of vessels, what you see going up the river there by the railroad bridge, and encourage that type of concerns that Courtney and other operators have by placing boats that will go 70 feet out. And yeah, they're a 5-foot difference. Who's going to tell the difference if they end up putting an 80-foot vessel? So I'd be opposed to this, granting this waiver.
I have a question for the applicant.
I want to ask a question, maybe to clarify it. I think, and I don't know whether this is a legal deal or not, but I think if you have 5 boats anywhere, it constitutes a marina, which requires fire lines. I don't know I don't know whether a resident that has 5 boats is classified as a marina, or basically it's not, because it hasn't been classified. But I was basically saying, I know that if you have 5 boats, you have to have fire lines and everything else put into place. I know that's in the code. I don't see fire lines on here either. In other words, if you have a marine or something, it's got to have all these fire things and places when you have 5 boats. 5 boats is a cutoff. 5 or more constitutes a marina.
Okay.
So, and just real quick, we are going to comply with all the applicable laws with it. What we're here to decide today is whether we're going to go past the 25 feet. So I understand what you're saying, but this is not what I believe is the time or the forum for that, because that's going to encapsulate it within building permitting.
And then also, I believe a marina would be considered one where there's 10 or more boats as opposed to the 5 or more. It will be a multifamily residence. And there's condos just down the street that also have 10 vessels moored against their property. But I'm sure they're all encompassed within a lease, which we have an application in for a submerged land lease through DEP, which will monitor. DEP is aware of the situation, especially along this portion of the New River where leases are needed, and they will strictly enforce the lease and any vessels within it.
And I just want to make mention as well, she brings up a very good point with it. These are going to be deeded slips, so it's not going to be like this forever. Eventually it'll get developed. The developments happen a lot quicker because some neighborhood uproar over a misperception about certain public property being public. But essentially, we're going through the process. We're getting everything we need for it. And these will be deeded once the final site plan's done to where we're going to be well below any threshold of concern.
Okay. Any other questions from our board before we turn it over to the public? Barry.
Here we are again being asked to approve a project without a site plan corresponding to what's on the water. And when there's a problem, it comes back to, well, the Marine Board approved it.
And I understand your point with it, but let me tell you how this process played out, and that explains why we're in this situation today, essentially. The client purchased the property because it's got great water frontage. You know, we're all boaters. We all grew up here. We love the water. People move here because they love the water. He bought a place because this was a great opportunity on the water, and no one on this board could say if they could have got that property, you know, that's a great property to have with it. So he gets it. He's from the Panhandle. He is in development, but he bought it because he has a boat. He wanted to dock it here. He wanted to use it for his kids. He wanted to move forward with a swimming pool, fix up the dock so he could dock his boat, and then he was going to figure out what to do with the upland portion, and then he would thoughtfully develop it. His biggest concern was fixing the terrible state of this seawall in these docks. It is not in a good state. He bought this property in May of 2020. It's not like he sat on it. He immediately submitted an application to improve a danger to the community, help raise the seawall to certain levels with it, all while being within existing footprint just to extend a walkway a little bit further. And then we get an uproar because he fences off a property according to a survey that he has. Anyone who's bought a home and buys a survey, oh, let me put a fence where my survey is. You're not going to think you're going to spend $50,000 in attorney's fees having to explain all of this on routine issues that never come up just because he put a fence on his property in accordance with a previously existed survey, which was issued under a title policy. So it's not as though we're backdating anything. He came in. First and foremost, he loves the water, wanted to fix the seawall, wanted to put the docks, and honestly wanted to put a swimming pool for his kids and they could run around and figure. You know what I mean? But that's what he was doing, and all this other stuff just came as noise that we had to deal with as it came along. But all he wants to do is improve the condition of this seawall and docks, and that's why we're here before you today and want to just get this thing behind us so we could deliver a great product and he could finally feel like part of the community here.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions before we turn it over? Okay, let's turn it over to the public. Do we have anybody that'd like to speak on the matter? Please, go up and state your name.
Good afternoon or evening. My name's Janet Scraper. I live in Tarpon River. I went out there in a boat the other day just to drive around and kind of get my bearings on what that is. And I also took pictures from the land on both sides of the river and from the Marshall Bridge, and I sent them to you with, arrows showing what there were. So as you can see from that, there is not an extraordinarily width at this part of the Tarpon River. It is quite narrow, and as Mr. Laughlin pointed out, the other side also has boats, and so docks and things, and so it's really a very narrow area. And as far as I can see, there's no extraordinary circumstance here. He's got boats that are too big for the moorings that are allowed, as was just brought up, and they're not safely moored there, so he wants to extend this to do that. But the fact is, we have laws, and the laws say 25 feet. And the reason we have those laws is because somebody determined a long time ago that that was the proper amount that you could stick out into the river and allow safe navigation going by. And if there's no extraordinary circumstance, which there is not, then there's no reason to approve a waiver. But I would also like to say that we have another little concern. It appears that there's an extra dock to the west that they want to add. It's kind of hard to tell from the drawings, but there's two, and I realize they're crappy little docks and they could be improved. But the third one is the one that's concerning to me, because in Tarpon River, we've been working with the water trolley in the city to try to get the next time they expand, one more stop right there at the Anne Murray Greenway, because there's so much of Tarpon River that's on the river, and we're trying to get cars off the road, and we're trying to use the water trolley. And that was like we're hoping to get a water trolley stop. And if you put that third dock and have an extra boat, I think that would be impossible for the water trolley to navigate there. It might be impossible already with the 70-foot boat. But anyway, my main thing is that we've got laws that were made for a purpose. There is no extraordinary circumstance here, and so I would ask you to not approve this waiver. Thank you.
Thank you. Robin has a, yeah, let's get through the public. Anybody else from the public? Please. Just state your name as you approach.
Designed for short guys. Good evening. My name is John Petrowski, and I would submit that I am somewhat of a subject matter expert with respect to our infrastructure along our canals within inside the river, and a lot of practices which involve the meat of our discussion this evening. There's 3 points that I identified that I thought are important to discuss this evening in the context of this conversation. The first one, I think, is this is a matter of safety, I believe. The time, energy, and effort it takes for any homeowner like myself who lives on the water here to come in and spend the money and the time and the permitting and the legal fees to repair these seawalls and these docks that we have. The subject property here and several other along that property there have been dilapidated for quite a while. And the fact that some new owner is going to come in and spend tremendous time, energy, and money to fix the infrastructure that goes along our waterways, I think should not be overshadowed. If we don't allow these piers to be repaired and replaced and upgraded to a point where they will support the vessels that are currently there, I, as someone who would be called out to salvage vessels that break free from their moorings, or if these poorly dilapidated structures are pulled into our waterways and cause further damage to us that live on the water further down, this is something we really also need to consider. That little area there has several sections where city pipes come through. And these environmental folks that were here earlier this evening, thank God for them. I applaud what they're doing. But this also goes to support and fix those city pipes and fix the infrastructure that holds back the tidal flooding and all of these issues that were discussed earlier this evening. So the first thing I wanted to point out was I think we don't want to overshadow the importance of repairing this infrastructure. And I understand Norbert's concern, and I respect his concern very much. And I realize that vessels years ago were in the 30, 40 to 50 foot range. We've got a lot of folks that moved to Fort Lauderdale. They bought bigger boats. Now they're 60, 70, and 80 feet. I don't know that we're going to change that in this setting this evening. Those boats are there. They're not going to move. I think what we're talking about now is what's the bigger risk? Is it not doing anything and doing the ostrich effect and sticking our head in the sand, or working with these homeowners in collaboration to make sure that we fix the safety and infrastructure problems, because it's bigger than just what we're talking about tonight. If we don't allow them to do these things, believe me, I see the damage, Norbert's seen the damage of when these boats break free or these structures break free, and the damage it causes all the way down the canal. So it's just something I wanted to point out as somebody who gets called to deal with these things that I don't want us to overshadow. I'm also responsible for large vessels that have to navigate this waterway. I use almost every one of the tow facilities that we have here, and have spoken to almost all of them, and they assist me in towing vessels through this waterway. And I will tell you, while these concerns are valid, I think each one of these cases gets looked at in an individual basis, and it is more problematic on the northern side of this river than it is where this particular property is. But I will say that I transfer through that area quite often. There's a staging area that's kind of a turn where the Tarpon River comes out just a little bit further west of this particular property. But I can say that I come through here fairly often and personally have not had a significant issue with the boats that are there currently. And that's just a, I think, an important context to the conversation. I navigate these waterways with incredibly large, incredibly expensive, heavy equipment, and I get pulled. We do natural propulsion through our own vessels, and I get pulled through almost every tow company in town. And we currently don't have an issue there. Those vessels that have been there, as the gentleman Greg pointed out, have been there for a long time. So I don't think this is so much an issue about adding further structures into the waterway. I just wanted to point that out, that we come through there. And I think the last piece I wanted to just touch on was, making sure that we recognize that these owners who are trying to do this are making a significant improvement to structures that are causing a lot more damage and harm to the environment and to ourselves and to the other property owners, that the navigational waterway there is not really changing, and we can transfer, and I will go on the record as saying we can come through that area quite fine the way it is. And I think we need to look at these things as an individual basis. As much as I respect the comments that were made, if those other folks on the north side or further down want to do similar types of things, they need to come here, present a good case, and explain why it's going to work for them. And so I don't know that tying all of those things together is necessary in this case. So again, I just wanted to, my biggest concern is we need to fix the infrastructure problem here. It impacts the safety of everything that we've talked about, including these folks that were here earlier this evening. And I don't want that to get overshadowed by some of the details and things that we're not going to change. We're not going to change the fact those boats are there. They're not going to go away. But we can work together, I think, with these homeowners to come up with a compromise strategy that'll work. So thank you, guys.
Thank you.
May I?
Yes, go ahead.
I just wanted to say that I appreciate and understand all of your concerns, and I was just wondering if there was another dock configuration or an appropriate length for the finger piers that the board would suggest.
Yeah. Well, before we get to that, why don't we get through the rest, before we bring it back to the board, we can talk about that why don't we get through the rest of the comments from the public.
Okay.
So please.
Hello, Board. Thank you. My name is Jay Schechtman. I'm the president of the Tarpon River Civic Association. I think we all agree that our infrastructure needs to get fixed. There's no question about that. I think that's a completely separate issue from deciding whether or not we need to allow more than double what's allowed in the code for boats to extend out into our most important waterway. This item was meant to come before another meeting earlier, and it was deferred. I believe it was by the applicant. I'm not sure. I'm getting some nods. I don't know if that was, in the hopes that there would be less people early in January to be able to come. Clearly, that's the case because there were a number of people who did submit public comment on behalf of this item. Marlene Coonan said approval of this variance would make it less navigable in the New River. Cheryl Lopez reached out and said she's very concerned. She's with Raleigh Marine. I'm very concerned about the proposed application. The section of the New River where he's applying for the waiver is already a narrow passage. It will cause a navigation hazard for those traversing the New River. Greg Ike wrote, due to the impact narrowing the New River west of the 7th Avenue Bridge, this proposal will impact many businesses upriver by further narrowing the channel and increasing possible damages while navigating vessels under their own power or while being towed. Jonathan Goldman wrote, this is a residential neighborhood, and the only purpose of installing a dock system as proposed in the waiver would be to operate a pseudo marina without having a commercial license, ... David Gillen, president of Open Water Marine Engineering, wrote that they feel adding the length to the docks will constrict marine traffic and thereby affect their maritime industry west of the address. Also, the larger marinas west of this address could be adversely affected. George Cable wrote, I'm at a loss as to understanding the extraordinary circumstances. So on and so forth. The property owner across the street wrote and said that this would, across the river, said it would, be very narrow here, and due to the high traffic, it's not surprising to us that the only letters of support that were received were from the adjacent property owner, who has not as much of a variance as that's requested here, just so he can come and ask for the same thing. Also, the property to the south is also owned by the same person that's owned to the east. That wasn't mentioned. And then, as Janet mentioned, the neighborhood always viewed this greenway as being a future stop on the water trolley, just like you have in Coley Hammock, Rio Vista. Right now it's at Esplanade. The next logical place is at the city recognized Anne Murray Greenway, which is just to the west of this property. Has consideration been discussed here with respect to how this proposal would impact the water trolley's ability to access, the remaining portion of 7th Avenue there? There's already, a sailboat and 3 other, large vessels at the property. Are these, all owned by the property owner? At what point is this considered an active marina? We've had a lot of people in the neighborhood who have expressed concern that this is, not being done for the purpose of residential, this is a residential community, but rather as a marina, which is not permitted in our neighborhood. Thank you for our time. I think, everybody on this board seems pretty, pretty intellectual, and I think it's probably pretty obvious to you what's going on here. So, thank you for, we hope that you can see through it.
Thank you. Any other, do we have more from the public? What's that? Did you want to?
Yeah, I could just respond.
Yeah, please go ahead. Go ahead. Hold on.
I just want to make mention that it's crazy. It took this client almost a year and close to $70,000 to get, why is he going through this hassle? The local neighborhood's trying to do anything possible so they could get their water trolley stopped. That's why they alleged in the Sun Sentinel that it was public land. That's why they alleged the Historic Preservation Board. That's why they're giving problems here. And that's flooring and jarring, and they're trying to make a private individual subsidize a public use. How is the client going to accommodate the water trolley? No, where's the public land to where it can go? You know, there are property rights at issue, and there are things at issue with it. He built a fence in accordance with his survey, and it took 6 months and all this dang money to get that one answer. And that's why we're here today. And you guys are intellectuals, and I hope you can see what's really going on. And what we have is someone who moved here, trying to improve his property, trying to build something nice, didn't know what he got himself into. There were pre-designed plans without legal authority to be able to do so, and now it's trying to be backtracked. And that's not within the purview. Your purview today is to be consistent with what you've always done, to be able to follow the rules within navigability. There are laws, yes, but there's also exceptions built into laws. This is an exception built in to be able to be heard before you, so as the gentleman said, it could be heard on a case-by-case basis. But I don't want that all to get lost in the noise. I just wanted to get brought up. This is as to whether these existing pilings should be improved in conformance with the way it's always been used over a long period of time.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
Okay, and I just wanted to add one more thing as well. I believe it was on Hendricks Isle, that's about 160 feet wide. A waiver was approved for 35 feet. So given that this waterway is about 250 feet wide, 50-foot waiver, or 55 point something waiver, 55.6 I believe it is, would be consistent with those percentages. And then there have also been waivers within the vicinity for 50 feet as well. I believe it was across the river. So regarding the 30% width of the waterway, vessels are allowed to encroach 30% the width of the waterway. Yes, structures are limited to the 25 foot from the property line, which is why we are here today requesting the variance to safely moor a vessel that can extend 30% the width of the waterway. So we could essentially repair and replace the finger piers that are there and still extend 70 feet as we currently are. But we would like to do that safer for the applicants' vessels as well as the neighbors in the neighborhood. So with that, I thank you for your time and consideration. And again, if there's any suggestions, we would be open to that as well.
Okay, thank you. If there's nobody else from the public, we're going to bring it back to the board. We're going to bring it back to the board. One more, okay, go ahead. No worries.
My name is John Petrowski again, and again, I'm here as somewhat of a subject matter expert, and I really appreciate the comments that all of you guys have. I understand it, but I want to make sure that everybody understands that the existing rules allow for piers to be put there. The existing rules allow for these boats to be as large as they are today. That's not going to change, folks. These boats are going to be there, whether you allow them to put a floating dock structure out at 50 feet or you say you do nothing. The difference is the same boats are going to be there, the same number, because it's not a marina. There's not any legal problem here at all. They're going to put 5 boats there, just like the neighbor to the north and the neighbors to the south, because that's within their rights and they're in the rules, and there's not a rule that they're breaking. All they're simply asking for is to put boats safely moored on the property where they can. So I just want to point out that as much as I respect everything that these folks are saying, it's not going to change the end result. So I think it's important to focus on the facts and focus on the things that we can control and the things that we can do. This homeowner's going to put 5 boats there, just like the neighbor. He's going to maximize his opportunities. That's his right as a homeowner. I think we have to work with them to make sure it's done in a safe manner, and also realize that there are some benefits to what they're doing, as much as I understand and appreciate the things that can be perceived as a negative. But unfortunately, I think those boats are going to go there regardless of what the decision is. I think we got to keep in mind, again, my focus here is safety and the things that might go wrong, because they're going to put those boats there anyway. So just wanted to point that out, that I think it's important to stick with the things that we can control and stick with the facts. The facts are They're not breaking any rules, neither are any of those neighbors. Those big boats are going to be there, and we need to support them properly so that it doesn't cause much bigger damages down the road. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. We're going to bring it back to the board now for discussion. Robin, you had your hand up. Would you like to speak?
I think.
Norb, just one second. Robin's going to speak first. Go ahead.
Good evening, Robin Chiarelli, Executive Director of the Downtown Fort Lauderdale Transportation Management Association, and I'm a member of the Marine Advisory Board. I was the operator, overseer of the water trolley in my past life about a year ago. I haven't been involved in quite some time, but can we reach out to Transportation and Mobility and find out what the latest and greatest is about the extension of the water trolley route? When I was overseeing the service on behalf of the city, we weren't allowed to extend it because the original intention of the service was to activate the Riverwalk. As I understand it, this is not part of the Riverwalk. So it would be my understanding, if it's the same as before, that they are not intending, even though it might serve the residents, and I do think that it's an idea worthy of consideration, it is not part of the Riverwalk and thus would not be intended for an extension of the water trolley. But that was a year ago. Lots has changed. We're no longer the nonprofit with a board of directors providing recommendations to the city and working with that service. So I would just ask if we can reach out and find out.
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay. Norb, go ahead.
Yeah, one of the things with the lawyer and stuff over there, this board is not really concerned with the upland, not concerned with your greenways or whatever you're talking about. As far as I'm concerned, this board is concerned with the navigation rights on the new river, not the middle river, not on any little canals or anything else, on the new river. It's a commercial boat right away. There's commercial traffic that moves back and forth from our marine industries and stuff. We have water taxis that are on the new river that are back and forth. We have tour boats that run back and forth on there. We have like the Jungle Queen and things on that order. So our concern here in the board is the navigation and the safety issue. And I think that you are in violation of that, even if though they're saying that boat's been out there for X amount of time. It has been a navigation problem. And I firmly believe that. And I said, running a tug and a barge up there, I have run into situations where the encroachment is getting worse. And maybe what John said and stuff over there, sure, the vessels are getting bigger, but you have to understand that in the last 10 years, the river has gotten narrower too. What used to be a 50-foot boat with a 12-foot beam tied up against it is now a 65-foot boat with a 15-foot beam. So you've taken 6 inches or 6 feet away from the river to start with. So I'm for moving the boats back. And I agree that we should not be doubling the 25-foot rule that was put in there for a reason. And if you're buying a house and stuff on the anticipation that you're automatically going to get a variance that you can move out another double that amount, I think you're badly mistaken. So I guess in general what I'm saying is the new river is what I think needs protection as far as the navigation rights of the boat industry that is to the west. So, thank you.
Okay.
I've got a question
Go
for
ahead.
Andrew. I know we had a lot more people showing up at the last meeting, but most of them did send letters, and all those have been put into. I know we've got the Association of the Neighborhood, who the representative is here today. We've got the Yellow Condos, who sent a letter, I believe, Eric Stern, president of the Condo Association, or if not, he either sent it last time or he communicated to me that he was against it. The Yellow Condos who have it, and then the two neighbors across the river from them have sent in letters. Is that? And then we had people from Cape Ann Towing send in letters against it. Anyone else against or for that came in letters that I missed?
I have distributed all of the letters that came in since this waiver was scheduled.
Okay.
The first time this waiver was scheduled, there were more letters of concern, and I did alert those folks to the rescheduling of this item.
Thanks. Just want to make sure we got it all into this record.
Okay. Thank you, Ed. Richard, go ahead. You want to speak into the microphone? You want to speak into the micro? Richard, speak into the microphone so we can make sure the microphone's on.
Apparently, this is a commercial enterprise. Am I correct? You're going to rent these slips out to people?
It's a multifamily residence.
And they're going to use the slips, or are they going to rent these slips?
It will be.
They're going to be deeded to the construction. Right now, it's currently an RD15, which permits the activities taking place on there. It's in full compliance with it. Those moorings are already existing. Again, navigation's where it's at with it, even existing, and they'd be able to replace those in the same footprint too. But it's within code. He's permitted to do that, and then once eventually it gets developed, they will be deeded residential slips.
Steve, go ahead, please.
And along that same line, if they're deeded slips, so this is a multifamily development, you're selling units here? This is not a single-family home?
So the property by right permits 5 units on it based on the acreage and the zoning. Again, the plans were moved quickly because of the outfall for the neighborhood from not being able to put this use there with it, and a lot of the letters were from people turning support based
I
on
understand.
that.
But you had alluded to the fact that the owner wished to build a pool for his family, and this was for the owner's use.
So the plans.
This is a business.
So when this whole hoopla, he bought it to develop it eventually. He is planning on keeping one of the units, still waiting to be seen with it, but as of right now, there's plans that are built to show 4 units on it. There's plans to show 2 units in a single family home. But at some point, these will be deeded to those units with it. There will definitely be a duplex on one half of the property, and one of those slips will go to one of those units within the duplex. As to the other property, we have to figure out what's going to be workable right there within it, and then that is a maximum 2 for that one with it. So it's just a matter of how this site plan works out. We know there's a duplex going on one half. We know 2 of those slips will be deeded to that. And then it's a matter of the remaining, whether that becomes 2 units or a single family or one of those with it as well.
I understand. So basically, you don't know what you're building, but the hardship is, we've explained the hardship, but you're proposing a hardship for 4 people that don't even have boats there yet because you're going to sell them the units.
Because the existing conditions are such to where the footprint is in place to where any development on the upland portion would not be worthwhile until this was be able to known due to the exorbitant costs associated, as you well know.
So this is not a single-family home. This is a commercial development.
No, this
multifamily.
So it doesn't. Go ahead. It doesn't have to be.
It's not zoned commercial, I believe. I believe it's zoned multifamily residential, which is why they have require a 5-foot setback for the vessels. So I don't know what the site plan will be because we came to the Marine Advisory Board for structures on the water. So I'm not sure what's going on the uplands, but it's zoned residential.
I guess, I'm sorry, I don't mean to dwell on this, but we talk about the fact that somebody buys a property and they want to use it for their own boat. And I think as Norbert said, the boats have gotten bigger, et cetera. This is a site where you're proposing to develop a property that basically generates a profit to the developer and then sells the individual slips as condo slips. So you're going to have 4 people that have no interest whatsoever in the home.
He is planning and has talked many a times about keeping one of them for his own use with.
Right, I got that.
But that's what anyone does. That's, you make the highest and best use of property. That's what we're built on. That's how you get the improvements. That's how you have an investment back.
No, I understand all that, but this is not a single-family home where somebody has a need. This is somebody that's proposing to build a commercial property or a multifamily property and sell 4 condo units. Am I correct?
So they're going to be individually deeded units for the slips with it, and that's what I'm getting at. It's not a let's run a operation out of here. It's there's a nice piece of land. This is my zoning right. I could do this with one part and keep one part with it, and there's different ways to go about it. But again, this is a matter of what are the docks, what are doing it with it, and they will be deeded docks for residential use.
So deeded docks means that you will offer the docks for sale.
In conjunction with the sale of the upland unit.
Oh, okay. I'm even more confused
I have
now.
another question about this. In the interim, when do you plan on building these units? And is the marina going to be built, I call it a marina, because it's 5 slips. is it gonna be built before the houses? Are the houses planned now? Or is that somewhere down the future? And in the interim, they're gonna rent these slips?
So no, the original.
They're gonna rent these slips?
So it's permitted within there. I can't say, but RD 15 does permit it. The neighbor next door. That's why I alluded to before Ed Brin. That's what happens with it. So this zoning district permits any activity such as the one you're stating with it taking place. But that is not the intent. The intent is to build the upland, and we have the site plan in play. We have a meeting before the City Commission on January 18th to discuss the historic preservation. We would like to get everything wrapped up in once. We'd like to get a site plan approval, dock approval, all those within the same ticket with it if we can. But this has just been piecemealed because of the uproar and how things have gone with it.
But what you're telling me then, they're not gonna rent these slips?
I can't say anything. They're within their right if he would like to. If RD 15 permits it, Ed Brin next door, there's a lawsuit over 2018 because the city found him in violation, and there's a court decision saying RD 15 zoning permits that activity on the neighboring property, so I can't limit my client's options under the existing code. No, it's not, because it's within a residential zoning.
Slips, it's a commercial enterprise. It's not a residential slip.
It's a residential zoning that permits the activity taking place, and I apologize, but that's not what will be happening forever. These upland units are going to be more expeditiously built based on the outroar that's happening, and January 18th, I hope we have a final decision.
One more question.
Yes, sir.
Why is it necessary to have a 70-foot slip?
It's not a 70-foot, it's not a 70-foot.
It's a 70-foot boat you're putting in.
The boat with it is what I'm talking about with it.
Okay, you're putting a 70-foot, why is it?
No, the slip's
70 feet is that. So essentially, and this is what you was before, we're willing to work with you in terms of negotiation. I came here just to talk about zoning in upland. I don't want to, and also like uses and all of that as well. In terms of navigation, we have experts who have given testimony for it. We have an individual who says the barge is with it. We have regulations here. If you would like me to contact FDEP and confirm that, I've worked on sovereign submerged lands for a long time. There are rules there, and there are a certain set of defined rules which define navigability. Navigability isn't, let me look at this and see. There is a set scope of rules there, and as I understand, based on the presentation, we're within those rules. Now, if something there is you could live with, that's fine. You know, propose it, see what we could come with, and let's talk. But you have a piling out there substantially out already, and what I'm saying is that that condition needs to be satisfied. Otherwise, you're wiping away the upland property's riparian right to be able to store boats on it.
Any other discussion from the board?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Jimmy.
The concern that I have had from many marine businesses that are up the river is, in addition to the letters that we've received and the towboat operators, has been the navigability, you know, and the tightening of it, and more the concern of having even larger boats. So the one thing is that you talked about that there would be the enforcement aspect of, well, you're only allowed to have a 70-foot boat there because that's the law, and the government will enforce that. As it is now, what's enforcing the law as far as 70-foot boats is that there's only a 25-foot dock. And so you really can't put a 100-foot boat safely on there. You can obviously put a 70-foot boat safely on a 25-foot boat on a 25-foot dock, in that the pictures that you showed from 20 years ago, those boats were already there. So it's been 20 years that there's been big boats docked that way in that location. I don't know that I agree with the idea that it's a safety issue as far as that's the reason for doing it. Of course, it would make them tie up safer by having it, big, more robust, longer docks. But it also would make the possibility of putting a 100-foot boat or a 90-foot boat or an 85-foot boat in that same slip. And then it would be up to enforcement to enforce that boat gets fined or taken away from there. So now we have I'm not against having a 70-foot boat in that location. But I am against having a 80-foot boat or a 90-foot boat slipping in there. And what I've seen from other situations are the size of the boat that's in a spot can creep up, you know, as far as what it is. So it's the concern of that there would be even larger boats in that area. The argument of the 30%, yes, that is what the rule is, 30%. However, there are areas where, for just example, right up the river from there at Little Florida, if one of the property owners there decided that they were going to put their boat 30% out into the water, it would eliminate all the business going up the river. You could not have the boats that go around Little Florida be towed around that peninsula if there were boats that, sticking out 30%. So I think that, just because you can do something doesn't mean you should do something. And I believe that the potential for abuse, if these docks are capable of putting much larger boats in there, is a real concern. I don't disagree that you should be allowed to put 5 boats there, or that you should be allowed to put 70-foot boats there. I think that that's okay. But I think that the natural restraint of having docks that it's barely okay to put that size boat at that location kind of eliminates the concern or the worry that even larger boats would be put there. Because that's something that comes before this board a lot, as far as, well, I'm putting these mooring pilings out there and I'm only going to put such a size boat. So it's always the cheat that can happen here is, well, we're only getting, this is what's legal, but we know with a wink and a nod that we're actually going to exceed that in the future. And with this, we don't even know who's going to exceed it, because they're going to be sold, the units. So while we may be thinking, well, we're not going to ever do that, well, what about the next guy? And we already know, that they're going to be sold, deeded slips. So for that, and as far as spending the money, for doing the improvements, I think that, just that it wouldn't negate spending the money to do the improvements if you're still allowed to do what you're allowed to do, of putting it there. Just fixing the seawall and putting new docks in that don't exceed the current rules as far as the extensions into the waterway. It works. It's been working, for a long time. So anyway, I'm in disagreement of allowing this to go forward. So.
Thank you. And I understand your concern. So is there appropriate finger pier length that you would deem it's acceptable to moor a 70-foot vessel, but would also ease your concern that an 80 or 90 or 100-foot boat's going to go there when we're only proposing a 70-foot?
At this time, I would
That's for anybody.
I mean, yeah, it's tough to speculate on that.
put on this and move forward, and if you want to do something else, resubmit, because at this point, we have a lot of, we'd have to put that back to this is in so many people are against it, that it wouldn't be right for us to come in here and put another number in without them having a right to come in and also talk about that.
Understood. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we probably do a vote then, unless there's more.
What's that? I don't know. I mean, if we want to put a motion out, we can, but we've heard from the public. We've heard back from the board. It's still with the board. So if anybody would like to have more discussion on it on the board level, we're more than welcome to.
Excuse me, will we be able to defer?
Andrew? Sure.
Okay. We'll reconvene and get back to you.
Okay.
I appreciate everybody.
Thank you.
And I understand your concerns. Thank you.
Okay, good discussion there. We'll move on to the next item, which is old business and new business. Do we have any old business? Do we have any new business? Andrew? Old or new from you? Okay. If we don't have any old or new business, do we have
Motion, we adjourn.
do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Thank you.